nerds, Martina here, and today I'm gonna make this headphone stand for my desktop. I know it's been a while, I've been really busy with exams and such, and while I've been studying I've had a really messy desk, and I tried to find some ways to clean it up a bit, and that's why I'm making this headphone stand. I'm gonna use pine wood, as other types of wood is kinda hard to come by around here. I'm gonna create a base first, which will consist of 3 layers, 2 made of wood and 1 of acrylic glass. I'll deal with the wood first and cut 2 circles out of it. Also, we've finally been able to add a new jigsaw to our workshop, which we really needed. The previous one never cut one straight line, but this one's amazing to use. The shapes aren't exactly perfect at this point, but I'm gonna fix that up later, so I'm not cutting too accurately here. I also need something that I can actually hang the headset on, and I'm gonna make that out of wood and a metal handle. To make the design a little more interesting, I'm making the wood concave instead of straight. Again, it was great to have that new jigsaw, or it would have been impossible to make that shape. Okay, so I'll leave that alone for now and move on to the acrylic. I know I could probably just have made a paper template, but I chose to take marker, tape it to a compass and then use that to make a circle. Doesn't look super intelligent, but it works. I'm using a scroll saw to cut the acrylic. I think this is one of the most practical tools we have in the workshop, and definitely one I've used a lot, as it's perfect for cutting acrylic. In these types of projects, it's really been my best friend. Now that I have all my main pieces, I can start shaping them. I'm cutting out a slot for the back piece separately on each layer. As you see on the acrylic here, I'm adding a bit of extra space to the back. This is because it's gonna be real hard to remove mass from the acrylic later if it doesn't fit, so might as well do it now. Okay, so before I continue, I just have to drill a small hole through each piece because I have to be able to line them up perfectly, and now I can do that by pushing a nail through. Now I can just use the acrylic piece to mark up where to cut the wood. As I added a bit of extra space to the acrylic, I have to adjust that now so that the wood at the top and the bottom will sit flush against the back. The scroll saw does a great job with wood as well, so these circles are fixed in no time. Here's the 3 pieces that's going to make the base of the stand. I have to sand them down first, and then it's time to give each layer a different look and a different function. I'm just clamping them together so I can sand them down and try to make them as flush as possible. I'm using a sheet sander, but if I had an orbital sander, I think that could be more efficient. Let's deal with the top piece first, which is where I'll create the Hearthstone logo. As the logo mainly contains geometric shapes and lines, it's easy to construct and recreate by hand. I found that it was nice to have a printout anyway, as I can use it as a template to measure the distances and the size of the shapes while I'm drawing it. I mostly used a ruler and a compass to make it, and then I just cut out the center spiral and drew around that afterwards. That way, everything is proportionate and accurate. Along the way, I thought it could be kinda cool to try to route out the inner circle to give it some more depth, and also that would give me some new experience using a router. It was way easier than I thought, even though I was kinda scared of ruining the wood. With some touch-up sanding, it turned out great, and I just had to draw the inner spiral over again. Next up's cutting out the spiral. To get clean, straight holes, I'm using a drill press to remove as much mass as I can. Well, a minor damage happened, the wood cracked along the grain here, so I added some duct tape to the back while finishing the drilling, and I'll remove it, fix it up and glue it back on later. Most of the mass has been removed, but I got a bit scared after the cracking incident, so I didn't really want to take any chances with the drill press again. I can just clean up the rest with the Dremel anyway. When I was done with the rough shape, I filed the indents in the design and then I glued back on the broken piece using regular wood glue. Time to use another tool I have no experience with, which is the wood burning tool. This one's actually really cool. I bought a set that included lots of bits to create different effects, and in this one I already got to use 3 of them. It was a really fun tool to use, and I'll probably use it more in future projects. The only thing I found a bit tricky was not to bump the upper part of the pen onto the wood, as this left some unwanted marks here and there, but I'm not used to being aware of that. Most of it was removable with sandpaper anyway. As I have the sander out already, I'll sand the surfaces of the acrylic as well. This is because I don't want to be able to see the underside of the stand, and also I need to make the light visible. The sides still look very rough, and altogether it looks more finished if the edges are smooth. I'm using wet sandpaper, rubbing compound and wax polish to make it look as shiny as possible. I want the acrylic to be edge lit, as it makes the light look brighter. I think 3 holes placed around the spiral should suffice, so I used a drill with a hole saw bit for that. And I always try to remember to pre-drill these kind of things first. Turns out my saw bit was very wobbly, so I should probably throw it out and buy a new one. Anyway, this is what the acrylic looks like when it's all finished. Now that I've got the top and middle pieces finished, I gotta deal with the bottom. I'm marking up the holes first so I know where the light should pass through, and then I know what I have to make space for. Afterwards I drew a circle, fixed it up a bit and then drilled a hole as a starting point for the jigsaw. The next part's a bit tricky and grindy. I had to try to create a perfect socket for the hand to slide into, but it has to be so tight that you have to hammer it in place, but not so tight that you can't get it to fit. It's just a bit of trial and error. While you're watching me file here, I just want to thank Banggood for providing the LED strip in this project. They made a page for this channel on their website that shows some of our projects and the tools and materials we use to make it. The page looks really awesome, and if you buy anything from it or from the links below, our channel gets a small percentage of that as affiliation. If you by any chance want to support us, that's one way to do it. Thanks Banggood! There, I finally got it to fit, and now I have to focus on the back piece. I'm starting by marking up where I want to remove mass and also drawing a line down the back that will help to remind me where the center should be and where I'm not supposed to remove anything. I'll go over the whole thing with a planer first and then a file. At the top I'll make it rounded and drill a hole for the screw. Pre-drilling first and countersinking after, as the screw's head is a bit big. Finally, we've come to the most satisfying part, at least I think, which is staining the wood. I know a lot of people prefer the lighter shades of wood, but I really enjoy those dark wood shades, and as I can't get a hold of any nice types of wood like walnut for example, wood stain will have to suffice. But with 2 layers I think it's gonna look great, and it makes the wood burning a bit more subtle. When the stain was dry I could finally assemble it all. As I'm gluing wood on acrylic, this polyurethane glue probably works better than regular wood glue, as it's made for wood on other materials. I'm trying to add a very small amount as I don't want any glue spillage around the edges. After adding a couple of clamps, I used wood glue to attach the back piece, and I really had to hammer it in here as it was very tight. Great, so it's been 4 hours and I'm actually done with the woodworking now. Before I continue to deal with the electronics, I'm just gonna add the metal handle at the top. The only thing that remains now is to make it light up, and I'm gonna keep the electronics simple this time. I found this USB LED controller, which is just what I need for a desktop headphone stand. Because I'm gonna use RGB LEDs that take 5 volts as input, this is perfect for that purpose. I'll fasten those together, and as always you can find the links to everything in the description. Now, I always like to add a shrinking tube to secure the wires, so I'll do that after I made sure that the arrows on the LED controller and the LED strip line up. Nice, I'll put that away for a bit because I need to make a slot for the wire first. That will require a ton of filing, but I didn't want to take any chances with a Dremel or something similar at this point, so I tried to be patient. As I said, I wanted to make the electronics as simple as possible, meaning solder-free LED strips. I used hot glue to glue one piece at a time, and then I let it dry in between, because that made everything a lot easier. I tried to wrap it as elegantly as I could without crossing the spiral on the top layer. I know it doesn't look fantastic, but that's not too important to me. I just made sure to test the lights every time I made some weird twist or anything to make sure that nothing went wrong with the LED strip. One thing to notice is that the sensor on the LED controller is hidden underneath, so whenever I want to change the color or the lighting effect I have to lift it up and point the controller at it, but that's not an issue to me at least. Now I can just flip it over, plug in the lights and enjoy the view. I wish it was easier to find different types of wood here in Norway, as I think this pine can be a bit tricky to work with. It was nice to try the router and the wood burning tool, as it's been something I've had lying around, but haven't really had the opportunity to try out yet. Overall, I'm very happy with it, and I think the dark color adds a great contrast to the lights. Apparently, I can't get enough of these LED strips. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this build, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to this channel so that I can see you in the next video.